have a 21-year-old daughter, and I've told her this since she was a very little girl. Mm-hmm. It does not matter what the circumstances, whether you're right or whether you are wrong. Be quiet. Don't say anything, because you have a right not to say anything, whether you're an adult, whether you're a minor, whether you're in school, whether you're on the street. You have a right to say absolutely nothing.
Hi, my name is Nicole, and I'm the Legal Program Director for the Know Your Rights Camp Autopsy Initiative. And here today we have a special guest, Tanisha Green, who is the Assistant Dean of Student Development at Thurgood Marshall School of Law. So welcome so much, Tanisha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. And so I wanted to talk about your presentation that you're doing for Know Your Rights Camp.
I have myself and 4 other people that'll be speaking tomorrow on the rights of minors, and starting off with their Bill of Rights. I have some students from the law school that I'm bringing over to discuss their Bill of Rights, the Bill of Rights and what they are, and explain them in terms that students can understand.
Right.
I have a couple of attorneys that will be assisting in talking about the 4th Amendment to the Constitution, and that's the right to search and seizure. And then I'll talk a little bit about students' rights while they're in school, and how they differ slightly from the 4th Amendment rights that adults have.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for that context. And it's been a while since I've taken constitutional law, so I think the refresher is going to be good for all of us. But could you briefly kind of explain some of those differences of how those rights differ in different contexts, in the school context, for example, or for minors?
So when you're talking about the 4th Amendment, you're talking about the right for a person for them to be free, to walk, to drive, to travel without unreasonable search and seizure of their person or of their property. So if someone's walking down the street or driving in a car or at school, walking down the hallway, what are their rights, 4th Amendment rights? We're going to talk about that and what the law says those rights should be. Right. And we know we've had issues with that in the past forever. Right. And then how those rights differ just slightly when we talk about kids at school. What are their rights? For example, when you walk down the street as an adult, you have the right to say no to a police officer or anybody that wants to look into your bag, search your backpack, search your pockets, things like that. No, I have a constitutional right to tell you no, and you cannot infringe upon that right. That's what the law says. Our kids, when they're in high school, we deal with issues with drugs and things that they may not have, but that does not mean that school officials are free to just willy-nilly do whatever they want. But until maybe 15, 20 years ago, we never had to deal with these issues of how do we protect the property of our students. Right. There's no law. There's no law to protect them. So while they're in school, the resource officer, a principal, they can take a student's bag and search it. They can search a student's pockets. They can search the vehicle that might be on the school's property. Those things are different from an adult because a student doesn't have a right yet to say, no, you can't do that. There's no right to do it. So their rights are a little less than those of adults. When you talk about searching the person, there's an extent you can go to. You can't make a student remove their clothes. There are some rules that they have to follow, things like that. We have to protect their safety. Yeah. And so there are some rules that they have to follow, but they are not as protected by the Constitution as adults are.
Thank you for providing that insight. And can you explain what a search and seizure is? Kind of what is that briefly defined as?
So search and seizures. Seizure is, stopping. Stopping, detainment, making someone stay with you or be in an enclosed place without the freedom to leave when they want to leave. That's what a seizure is. You're stopping me. You're making me go about my way, or stopping me from going about my way, potentially taking things from me. So the search is you're searching a person's pockets, their any property that they might have on them or that they're in, whether it be a home, a car, a boat, and also asking for an ID that you're not legally required to receive. That's a search. No, you, and in the United States, or in most states, because there are some states that have changed their laws a bit, and you don't have the right to say no to a police officer asking for your identification. In Texas, which is where we are, police officers cannot just stop you and ask you for your identification. There has to be some sort of articulable reason for the search of the person's identification.
No, thank you for explaining that. And so what do you think it's important for the youth to take away from the presentation? I think oftentimes you said we've seen that rights are often, it can be infringed, but what should they be able to take away? What should they put into practice? What should they learn kind of from the rights that they do have?
The biggest thing, and this is not the only thing, the biggest thing that I would want students, and I have a 21-year-old daughter, and I've told her this since she was a very little girl. It does not matter what the circumstances, whether you're right or whether you are wrong. Be quiet. Don't say anything, because you have a right not to say anything, whether you're an adult, whether you're a minor, whether you're in school, whether you're on the street. You have a right to say absolutely nothing. The best evidence against any person is evidence that they give against themselves. If you don't give anything, your words can't be twisted. Their confession won't be received. Just don't say anything. Let the people who are working for the government do their job. Let them do their job. Let them investigate and let them figure it out. Don't tell on yourself. Don't tell, just be quiet, because you have the right to do so. That's that's the most important thing that I want students to take from this. Is to know that they have rights and to research those rights. And the biggest one is they have the right not to say anything to anybody.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I think oftentimes individuals may feel pressured. You know, they're thinking in their head, oh, if I just say something, if I just explain myself, then they're trying to help the situation, because then, you know, on the other end, they'll say, oh, do you have something to hide? Is it suspicious? So I think kind of, how do you feel when people are kind of feeling that pressure? What kind of mindset should they have in that space? Because it can be very intimidating also, especially being younger, being a minor. Kind of what advice do you have for navigating through that kind of feeling or that urge to want to say something?
Yeah, and that's so important, and I'm glad you brought it up. How I would train my child to go into a situation where they feel pressure is to know, in the back of your mind, your mother, your attorney told you, you have to be quiet. You have to be quiet. Let us figure it out later. You have to be quiet. No one can pressure you into saying anything about any situation. And I say that because you never know when someone is going to twist your words.
Right.
And going into minors. So kids, they're kids. You know, they might do some adult things, but they're kids and they do silly things, right?
Right.
And they might think that they're innocent. And so when they're going to their principal or the resource officer and they're explaining their side, like, you know, no, this is what happened, A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yep.
I would 100% advise against it, because your words can be twisted.
Right.
And so what they'll do is they might call parents in. You'll talk to your parents and your parents, just tell them so we can get out of here and go home. Right. No, don't let your parents pressure you into giving a statement. Don't let the resource officer, principal, counselor, no one pressure you into giving a statement. Right. Allow them to investigate the way that they're going to investigate. Don't do anything or say anything without an attorney, because an attorney, if you speak through an attorney, none of that information can be used against you.
Right.
You know, whatever you say. One of my very first cases when I started practicing law was a juvenile case. It was a case where a kid did something in school or he didn't do something in school, and I had to try that in court. You know, it's important that students understand that the things that they say can hurt them later, even if it's a Class C misdemeanor that goes to the lowest court in the state.
Right.
That could eventually be sealed. I'm going to say sealed because that's all it is sealed. It's still there.
Right.
And they think that they can go on about their lives later on. I was in the Air Force, and I worked in JAG. I was a JAG. I defended people who were seeking a top secret clearance, who could no longer receive that. They were not eligible because of something they did when they were 14 years old and a freshman in high school.
Wow.
That record was sealed for all of the regular people, regular jobs that he might apply for. But they are not sealed to DOD. They are not sealed to DHS. They are not sealed to FBI, CIA. They can pull all of those things unless they're expunged. When it's expunged, it goes away completely. But that's not what they offer our kids. They're offering our kids, oh, take this light sentence or take this fine, and we'll seal it when you're 18. It's harming our kids. And they don't know it until they're in a place, a better place, because they're 25 years old and they're mature and they're doing all the right things, and they apply for jobs and they can't get it. They can never get those jobs. So that's one of the things I might not be able to talk so much about, but I do want them to understand that the actions now, not just in school, but actions if you're ever charged, could affect them later.
Yeah, I think that's so important to bring up because no one's thinking about that at that time. You're thinking about that moment. You're not thinking 10 years down the line, even 5 years down the line, and you're thinking that something that small or minor, which often it is, can have that large of an impact in something while you're trying to be in a better space. So I do think that's so important to bring up. And so my last question that I have is more, I know you said that right now there's just not a lot of laws being able to protect kind of students currently right now or minors right now. What do you think would be helpful from a legislative or a policy standpoint of like what could be done to better protect students and minors about their rights?
I think that students, I mean, there are laws that are trying kids as adults, right? So why can we have those laws on one end and not the other? We need laws to protect our children's rights to search and seizure in school, in the school place.
Yeah.
They're being detained anytime that they are asked the principal's office to talk about an incident. They're being detained. They don't know it. They need those same rights that I would receive as an adult in the schoolhouse.
Right.
And I'm not sure if that's being worked on right now. I'm sure there's some educational law attorneys that might be working on that. I'm not positive, but there are definitely articles and research done discussing the issue. So if we could give students the same rights that align with those of adults, then I think that would be a good foot forward.
No, definitely. And thank you for sharing that with me. And one question that I did have, you mentioned kind of the detainment portion. And so currently right now, at least in Houston, if there is someone who wants to investigate or have some type of interrogation, can they do that without a parent or adult being present currently right now?
They can. So
wow, okay.
Let's give you an example. If a student did something last night,
okay,
broke into a house or allegedly broke into a house, and they go to school the next day, police can come to the school.
Wow.
They can come to the school and talk to that student without the parents. So that's why it's important that the student understands that they say nothing without an attorney and or without a parent. They need to say, I am not going to speak. I want my parent. I want an attorney. I am not going to speak to you. And so the laws are a little gray with whether or not a parent can a student asking for a parent can invoke their right, those protected rights, the Fifth Amendment rights to an attorney and not to speak and all those things. So I would say ask for a parent and ask for an attorney.
Okay, that's helpful.
Because
really
they don't
helpful.
understand those Miranda rights that are given to them.
Right.
They don't understand it. Adults don't even really understand it. They just know, I'm scared, I'm in trouble, I want to get out of this trouble, and I'm going to say whatever I need to say to get out of it.
Right.
And police officers can tell you a lie to get you to confess to something. So.
Right. No, I think that's so important to keep in mind as all that's going. And I think you brought up another point. I didn't even realize that you could still be questioned at school for something that happened outside of school. That's just another huge issue if that could occur and just open up kind of a whole nother realm of problems that can occur where their students are leaving them unprotected and feeling intimidated in those situations. So I think that was a really great example to bring up. And thank you so much for your time here.
Absolutely.
For the presentation that you're doing. I know that it's very impactful and important for them to learn. This is truly for their benefit and their safety. So I think that the message that you are conveying, the advice and insight that you're able to provide is significant and potentially truly save them. And so I think
absolutely save them.
Is so important. And we really, really appreciate having you here.
Of course, anytime.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for watching the Know Your Rights Camp podcast. Please make sure to follow us on our Know Your Rights Camp socials, visit our Know Your Rights Camp YouTube, and also our website at knowyourrightscamp.org. Thanks so much.